The O'Reilly Factor is on tonight.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse. We don't have a strategy yet.
Is President Obama doing too little, too late to confront the ISIS threat? We'll hear from two top military experts on how to defeat the terrorist group.
There is a war on black boys in this country. In my opinion, there is a war on African-American men.
Why has opinion replaced facts in the news? Have the riots in Ferguson turned not just a town, but a nation into warring camps? Bernie Goldberg will analyze what is troubling America.
Whether we can get health care, afford college, be guaranteed equal pay, all of these things are at great risk.
And Scarlett Johansson, my ex, getting into bed with Planned Parenthood. But could their new campaign to attack Republicans backfire? We'll tell you. Caution! I have 10 of these. The Factor begins as soon as I stop talking. Hi, I'm Greg Gutfeld in for Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Let's get straight to our top story, confronting ISIS. Now, when it comes to terror, the White House has changed their tune more times than the jukebox. You'd think ISIS would realign priorities, but when our leader is fixated on our country's flaws, not its threats, it's no wonder he sends out more mixed messages than a dyslexic texter. Here's what he said today.
As our strategy develops, we will continue to consult with Congress, and I do think that it'll be important for Congress to weigh in, and or that our consultations with Congress continue to develop, so that the American people are part of the debate. But I don't want to put the cart before the horse. We don't have a strategy yet.
No strategy. So let's help him. There are two choices. ISIS is not yet a threat, or ISIS is a threat. Those who say it's not a threat act like ISIS are from outer space and it's going to take them decades to get here. Sorry, they're here on Earth. Evil can reach us now. See Boston, see Times Square. And even the incompetent over time becomes competent. The 9/11 bombers, they were feeble once, which is why, whether they can kill us now or later, obliterating them solves the problem either way. Let them live, and they spread faster than a cold sore in college. Which is why it's scary to see our president consumed by climate, not by terror, like a man worrying about dandruff in a plague. ISIS is no flaky condition. They're the deadliest terror group going, controlling the turf the size of Maryland, with oil fields and weaponry out-recruiting all. You can't spell crisis without ISIS, and until our commander in cleats takes it seriously, we're screwed. Meanwhile, comedians on the left, like Jon Stewart, seem to downplay the danger from ISIS.
First rule of evil. Try not to have your acronym remind people of 70s live-action children's television shows. Yes, we are taking over your town. From now on, everyone reports to me! Captain Kangaroo! So wait a minute. They're recruiting Americans?
He grew up in Minnesota, and nothing on his Facebook page hints why he decided to sacrifice his life for jihad. McCain's likes included Pizza Hut, the Chicago Bulls, and the Koran.
So ISIS is an unstoppable force of evil. It's been using things like YouTube to recruit hungry Chicago Bulls fans to fight for them.
Harmless. So what is the risk that ISIS poses to the United States? Joining me now to analyze from Boise, Idaho, former CIA officer Mike Baker, and from Washington, James Carafano, a national security expert and vice president at the Heritage Foundation. So, Mike, I'll go to you first. Jon Stewart compared ISIS, the terrorist group, to a kid's show. I guess they can't be that bad. They're foolish and silly.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, according to the State Department, over the past couple of days, it's a national security threat. According to military and intel personnel throughout the community, it's a national security threat. Jon Stewart or his writers think differently. So, frankly, I may have to reassess my position based on Jon Stewart's assessment. Look, there's a real problem here, and that is that there's two things you probably shouldn't do when you're confronting an enemy like ISIS. One is you probably shouldn't give them a lot of advance warning about potential airstrikes, and the other is you probably shouldn't say you don't have a strategy. And I don't want to make light of this, but I think today's press conference by the president indicates just how much they're struggling to figure out a game plan for this. Right now, we've been working to contain the issue. That's it. We need a strategic plan to defeat this problem before they finish what they're trying to do, which is gain territorial integrity and consolidate the position and ultimately make this a much bigger problem for us to deal with down the road.
James, was it a mistake calling ISIS JV, unless maybe it stood for Jumbo Vicious?
Yeah, well, there's a great story. Matter of fact, it was broke on Fox News about a report coming out from the Countering Terrorism Center at West Point, which is doing great work, detailing kind of the 4-year rise of ISIS. And even if you look at the open literature that's available, it was really clear these guys are becoming a big problem. And to say, we don't have a strategy is unbelievable. The day before when Pearl Harbor happened, we had a strategy because the military spent years thinking about, well, what happened if the unthinkable happens? And the notion that either we weren't doing that or our president hasn't been listening to things that might potentially be a problem, and therefore he's flat-footed and doesn't know what to do. Look, here's the real problem. Sorry. This guy's been president for 6 years. And so everybody has watched him for 6 years, and he's very, very the same. He's predictable, he's reactive, he's risk-averse. So how would you like to be playing poker with this guy? ISIS knows exactly what this guy's going to do.
No,
That's
actually, though, he surprised us today by wearing a tie, which I thought was a brilliant move. Mike, why would they want to pick a fight, this playing devil's advocate? Why would ISIS want to pick a fight with the most powerful military in the world while they're still consolidating gains in Iraq and Syria?
Well, here's the problem. That question is part of the issue that we deal with when we're talking about extremists and jihadists. Whether it's al-Qaeda, whether it's ISIS, the mindset is the same. We tend to mirror our thought process, our logic train, or our beliefs onto our enemies. And so you end up getting these questions like, well, I'm sure they won't do it. Right. It was like in the earlier days of the Iraq War. I'm sure the Sunnis and Shiites, they're never going to find common ground. They're never going to figure out how to work together or in some coordinated fashion against the U.S. So, they don't think that way. This is not, and they've been very clear. As James pointed out, this is not something that happened overnight. It wasn't just suddenly here was ISIS, they overran Mosul, and now it's a problem. This has been building for a significant period of time. And might I add, the military and intel community have been providing reports on it. They didn't gain traction until the thing really got out of control in Iraq. But we have to stop trying to think about this and trying to figure out, as if they process information, as if they think like we do. That's not the case. And if we continue down that train, we're going to have more problems than we know what to deal with.
Yeah, it gets frustrating when you hear people lecture you about trying to understand evil. James, should the U.S. actually try to work with Assad or even Putin or Iran to try? I mean, you're trying to pick the worst of everything and get everybody to galvanize around them. Is that a wise move?
Well, that was actually the one part of the president's press conference, which was actually pretty good, where he said, look, Assad is not the future of this region. He's as evil. So, you've heard the thing, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Well, in the Middle East, the enemy of my enemy happens to be my enemy. Assad and Iran are huge threats to not just our interests, but to the future of that region. And the fact is you have to be as much working against them as you have to be dealing with ISIS. They're all equally bad threats to us.
Mike, people are very, very worried about the fact that they're young Americans and young Brits drawn to ISIS, Europeans. I happen to think it's a great thing. In fact, I would like America to sponsor a terrorist transport program where we encourage young extremists to fly to Syria for whatever reason, and then when they get there, we kill them. It's like a long-distance skeet shooting competition. But I'm wondering, what would be your solution to this kind of boomerang terrorism where these guys are going there and then coming back because they have passports?
So I'm thinking you put a lot of thought into that concept.
I did.
That idea.
I did.
Look, this is a problem we've been talking about since 9/11. The extremists efforts to recruit Westerners. What do they want? They want people who can cross borders and can blend in. So this is an extension of that. They've gotten better at it over the years, obviously through social media, and whether they make direct or indirect contact with these individuals, as long as they pull them to the dark side, that's a victory for them. Now, we have gotten, at the same time, we've gotten better at trying to track, trying to understand the contact that takes place between impressionable, often unemployed, easily manipulable and influenced youth, often male, whether it's here in the U.S. or with our allies. But the fact of the matter is that even by State Department estimates, there's some 10,000 to 12,000 foreign fighters with ISIS right now. Probably 2,000 to 3,000 of those are European and North African. And the Europeans easily transferring across the borders without a visa. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about this being a national security issue, it's not some theoretical idea. We don't need another case study to understand what that mobility can mean or what it means if ISIS gains territorial integrity and has the comfort to develop, plot, plan, recruit, and train to reach outside those borders that they develop.
All right, we got to go. Gentlemen, thank you very much.